picture this. It's 6:30 in the morning. Your alarm goes off.
And you're already tired.
Right, exactly. Before your feet have even touched the floor, before you've even fully opened your eyes, your hand is already reaching for the nightstand.
Going straight for the phone.
Going right for the phone. And the screen lights up, and there it is. Just like a literal wall of notifications.
Oh, yeah. The worst way to wake up.
It really is. You've got, 3 urgent emails from your boss, a breaking news alert that immediately spikes your cortisol, and just a complete barrage of social media updates.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't even had a glass of water yet, and you already feel fundamentally, hopelessly behind schedule.
Well, it sets this physiological trap for the rest of the day, really, because when you open your eyes and immediately consume external demands, you're actually triggering a stress response.
Like a fight or flight kind of thing.
Exactly. You are flooding your system with adrenaline before your brain has even transitioned out of its natural sleep cycles. It sets a profoundly reactive tone for the next 16 hours of your life.
Wow. And that reactive tone is actually the core of our deep dive today. Welcome in, by the way. Today we are looking at a really fascinating narrative case study. And this is drawn from an advanced English learning curriculum.
It's a great piece of material.
It really is. Because our mission today is to decode a very specific, highly consequential distinction. And that is the exact difference between being a busy performer and being a high performer.
Two very different things.
Completely different. We're going to explore the mechanics of how completely reprogramming your morning can fundamentally transform your trajectory. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, I think the best entry point into this material is to look at the subject of our case study. So the text introduces this guy named Ethan.
Right, Ethan.
Yeah, he's a 38-year-old senior management consultant, and he works with these massive multinational companies. He travels internationally all the time.
So he's doing well.
Oh, incredibly well. If you look at his life on paper, you see just unmitigated success. He has the respected career, the financial stability, the impressive resume.
Right, the perfect LinkedIn profile, basically.
Well, exactly.
But the internal reality is a completely different universe.
Yes.
Mentally, the text says Ethan is just completely exhausted, like he's drowning in endless meetings, relentless deadlines, and this crushing pressure to just constantly perform.
And that brings us right back to that morning scenario we were just talking about. Ethan's old morning routine was basically an exercise in daily self-sabotage.
Yeah, waking up feeling rushed.
Rushed, drained, and spending those critical first moments of the day still laying in bed, just absorbing all the chaos of the world straight from his screen.
So what's actually happening in his brain when he does that?
Well, the mechanism at play there is cognitive overload. When Ethan starts his day by reading urgent emails in bed, he is forcing his brain to process complex problem-solving tasks while it's still in a state of sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia.
Right. He is asking his prefrontal cortex, which is the logical decision-making part of the brain, to sprint before it has even warmed up.
It makes me think of an analogy. I mean, Ethan's old morning routine is basically like walking into a gym, finding a treadmill that is already running at its absolute maximum speed and just trying to jump onto the belt.
Oh, that's a brutal image, but it's totally accurate.
Right, because you aren't stepping on and gradually increasing the speed. You are throwing yourself into chaos and just hoping you don't get thrown against the wall.
And the thing is, Ethan recognizes this friction. The source material shares this really poignant internal monologue where he asks himself, and I'm quoting here, "Am I managing my day or is my day managing me?"
Yeah, that's heavy. And then he asks another question that really anchors this whole discussion.
Right.
He says, when did being busy become more important than being present?
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, are we as a society just entirely mistaking a full inbox for a fulfilling life? I mean, I have to ask, isn't being busy kind of the entire point of having a high-powered career?
See, I would challenge that premise.
Okay.
I mean, modern society definitely celebrates busyness. We treat exhaustion as a status symbol.
We really do. The whole hustle culture.
Right. If you are constantly rushing, constantly answering messages at all hours, the assumption is that you must be indispensable. But what this case study highlights is that busyness and effectiveness are two entirely different metrics.
How so?
Well, busyness is about motion. Effectiveness is about progress. You can spend 12 hours reacting to emails, constantly moving, typing away, and accomplish absolutely nothing of deep strategic value.
Because you're just on the defensive. You're basically playing whack-a-mole with your inbox.
Exactly.
You're swatting away ping pong balls instead of actually moving the needle on the big projects. And the text shows that Ethan hits a wall with this. He realizes he can't keep jumping on that max speed treadmill every day.
Something had to break.
Right. So he makes a causal shift. He takes a short, completely tech-free vacation to just disconnect. And during this trip, he wanders into a quiet, independent bookstore. And he discovers this stack of books that completely challenge his perspective on productivity.
And that tech-free environment is key. Stepping away from the technology is what finally gave his brain the cognitive space, like the literal bandwidth, to actually absorb new ideas without immediate distraction.
He wasn't getting pinged every 5 minutes.
Exactly. So the literature he dives into starts with a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And this book argues that extraordinary lives are built through intentional mornings rather than rushed beginnings.
Okay, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of people listening to this deep dive are already super familiar with the concept of a morning routine. We hear it all the time, right? Wake up early, do some yoga, drink your green juice.
Right, the influencer morning routine.
Yeah, it can feel a bit cliche at this point. So what is the actual substance here beyond just waking up earlier?
That is a crucial distinction to make, because waking up early is just a temporal shift. It's just moving the clock. What the source material is pointing to is intentionality.
Intentionality.
Yes. High performers don't simply work harder or longer hours than everyone else. What they actually do is recover better, and they aggressively protect their attention. The morning routine isn't about cramming more tasks into the day. It is about establishing a fortress around your cognitive resources before the rest of the world starts making demands on you.
Okay, protecting your attention. That actually bridges perfectly into the next text Ethan studies, which I know a lot of you listening have probably read. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear.
A classic.
Yeah. Now, we all know the basic premise of building habits, but how does Ethan actually apply this to his morning without falling into that trap of just, trying really hard for 3 days and then quitting?
Well, he shifts his focus completely away from motivation and entirely towards systems. And this is a profound shift in understanding human behavior.
Because we usually think we need to feel motivated to do something hard.
Exactly. We wait for a burst of inspiration. But motivation is deeply tied to our emotional state, which fluctuates based on how well we slept, what we ate, or, what stressful email we just read.
Motivation is incredibly flaky.
It really is.
I look at motivation like a cheap sugar rush. You watch a hype video on YouTube, you get this massive spike of dopamine, you feel incredibly pumped up.
And then
2 hours later, you crash, and you are right back exactly where you started.
Precisely. And the text highlights that identity changes through repeated actions, not occasional flashes of inspiration. Neurologically speaking, when you rely on a system, you are utilizing your basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia.
Yeah, it's the part of the brain responsible for automated behaviors. You don't have to feel like doing it. You just execute the system. The friction of choice is completely removed.
So you don't even have to debate with yourself.
Exactly. And Ethan reflects on this with a really powerful thought from the book. He says, every morning is a vote for the person I'm becoming.
Every morning is a vote for the person I'm becoming. I mean, I love that phrasing. But let me challenge the reality of it for a second.
Go for it.
It sounds great on paper, but when the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and you are just dead exhausted, relying on a system sounds a bit robotic. Like, how does Ethan avoid just becoming a highly scheduled machine? Why do we naturally resist taking the action that we know will cast the right vote?
We resist because casting that vote requires upfront energy. It's hard. But the text proves that taking the action itself is what actually creates the new identity.
The action comes first.
Right. You don't become a runner and then start running. You run, and through the repetition of that action, your brain actually rewires itself to adopt the identity of a runner.
Oh, that makes sense.
So the system isn't a robotic constraint. It is the scaffolding that holds you up on the days when your motivation is at absolute zero.
So the system is the architecture, not the energy source. Okay, but the narrative progresses here, because getting out of bed with a purpose is really only step one. It's about how Ethan manages his actual brain once he is awake, right? The source material starts shifting from just physical morning habits to cognitive resilience.
Right, because if we connect this to the bigger picture, the structure of his morning is essentially useless if the quality of his thinking remains poor.
Yeah, if he's still stressed.
Exactly. So to explore mental resilience, Ethan turns to Mindset by Carol S. Dweck, because he has to confront how he processes setbacks.
Because the old Ethan, the overwhelmed Ethan, would hit a roadblock at work, and his internal voice would immediately go to self-criticism. He would ask, why am I failing?
And that specific question triggers a threat response in the brain. It activates the amygdala.
The fear center.
Right. But by adopting a growth mindset, Ethan starts using his morning journal for cognitive restructuring. The question he asks himself changes entirely.
What does he ask instead?
Instead of, why am I failing? He asks, what is this experience teaching me?
Wow. That simple pivot in language changes a setback from a permanent indictment of his character into just a temporary data point for future success.
It moves the processing from the emotional center of the brain back to the logical center.
Exactly. But to process that data, he needs sustained focus, which brings him to the next book, Cal Newport's Deep Work.
A phenomenal concept.
Yeah, Ethan realizes that constant, relentless interruptions have deeply fragmented his thinking. His brain has been trained to basically crave the dopamine hit of the next message.
Because he was beginning every single day in a reactive state.
Right. So what is the mechanism he uses to fix this? Instead of opening his inbox first thing, he schedules 90 minutes of completely uninterrupted work every single morning.
No email.
No emails, no Slack notifications, no quick chats, just pure, deep, focused concentration.
Well, what's fascinating here is the biology behind that specific 90-minute window. It actually ties into our ultradian rhythms.
Our ultradian rhythms.
Yeah, just as we sleep in 90-minute cycles, our brains operate in 90-minute cycles of peak alertness during the day. So by blocking out distractions, Ethan is basically riding the biological wave of his highest cognitive capacity.
But wait, in a corporate environment, especially for a management consultant, isn't 90 minutes offline kind of dangerous? People expect immediate replies. Doesn't he risk dropping the ball on something urgent by ignoring his inbox?
That is the common fear, definitely. But it's largely an illusion. Newport's work shows that the cost of constantly checking inboxes is something called attention residue.
Attention residue. What is that?
When you glance at an email and then try to return to a complex task, a portion of your attention actually remains stuck on that email you just read.
Oh, like it's running in the background.
Exactly. So your overall cognitive capacity is reduced. By scheduling 90 minutes of unbroken focus, Ethan produces more high-level strategic output than he previously did in 4 hours of fragmented multitasking.
So he's completely eliminating the attention residue.
He is.
And that intersection leads us right into the next concept he explores, which is from The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz. Ethan discovers that managing your energy is vastly more important than managing your time.
And this raises a really important question about how we fundamentally approach productivity. We are just so obsessed with time management.
Yeah, we slice our calendars into tiny 15-minute blocks.
Right. But time is a finite, static resource. Energy, on the other hand, is dynamic.
You know, let me throw out an original analogy here, because this concept completely shifted how I view my own schedule.
Let's hear it.
Think about it like having a smartphone. You have 24 hours in a day to use your phone. That 24 hours is your time. But if the battery is completely dead, if your energy is at 0%, that time is completely useless to you.
That's spot on.
Right. You can have all the time in the world, the newest phone, perfect condition. But if the battery is dead, you can't make a call, you can't send a text, you can't do anything. Time without energy is just an empty vessel.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Ethan realizes that trying to simply work longer hours is a losing game. The battery drains. The more time he spends pushing through fatigue, the lower the quality of his work becomes.
Diminishing returns.
Exactly. Instead, he learns he must balance that intense 90-minute concentration with purposeful recovery.
Okay, so what does purposeful recovery actually mean? It doesn't mean just scrolling social media, right?
No, absolutely not. Because scrolling is still consuming cognitive energy. You're still draining the battery.
Right.
Purposeful recovery means stepping away from screens entirely. It means taking regular breaks, getting physical movement, ensuring healthy sleep, and practicing mindfulness.
Doing things that actually put charge back in the battery.
Yes. These activities don't drain the battery, they recharge it. They increase his baseline resilience.
So he's treating himself like a high-performance athlete rather than, a machine that is supposed to just run 24/7.
Precisely.
So we've talked a lot about the theory. How do all these concepts actually look in practice? Because the source material details Ethan's completely redesigned morning routine to show the tangible results of all this reading.
Yeah, the application is where it matters.
Because the friction is always in the implementation.
The transformation in his routine is striking because it layers all of these mechanisms together. So first, he wakes up without checking his phone. The reactive cortisol trigger is just completely eliminated.
Replaced by what?
He replaces it with 10 minutes of mindfulness.
Which physically thickens the prefrontal cortex over time, improving his impulse control.
Right. Then he reads a chapter from a meaningful book. So he is engaging in slow, deliberate consumption rather than rapid, fragmented scrolling.
That's a huge difference.
It is. After that, he writes down his 3 absolute priorities for the day. He is setting the agenda before anyone else can set it for him. Then he exercises before work to spike his endorphins and clear out any remaining sleep inertia.
And because this case study actually comes from an advanced English learning curriculum, there is a fascinating linguistic layer to his new routine as well.
Yes, there is.
While he eats breakfast, he is focused on intentional learning. So he listens to an advanced English podcast.
And his approach to language learning mirrors his approach to productivity. He isn't just, memorizing isolated vocabulary lists. He is actively reviewing advanced collocations and academic vocabulary.
Hold on. For anyone listening who isn't a linguist, can we quickly define what a collocation is and why it actually matters?
Certainly. So a collocation is a group of words that naturally go together in a language.
Okay.
For example, in English, we say heavy rain, not strong rain, even though the literal meaning of the words is very similar.
Oh, right. Strong rain just sounds weird to a native speaker.
Exactly. By studying these lexical chunks, specifically words related to leadership, psychology, economics, and innovation, Ethan bypasses the slow process of translating word by word in his head.
He's learning the chunks instead of the pieces.
Yes, and that reduces his cognitive load when he's speaking in these high-pressure meetings.
So he's basically building systems for his vocabulary, just like he is building systems for his morning routine.
Exactly.
He's reading high-quality publications in English, absorbing the sophisticated sentence structures naturally, and he finishes this entire morning sequence by reflecting on one lesson he learned from the previous day in his journal.
The growth mindset in action.
Yeah, taking the data and processing it.
And now, observe the compound interest of these habits. By studying English vocabulary in use, advanced and engaging with high-level material every single day, his confidence in his multinational meetings just skyrockets.
Because he's prepared.
He isn't just managing his time better, his actual capacity to communicate complex, nuanced ideas to international clients has leveled up.
Because he's no longer rushing into work completely flustered. He begins every single morning with absolute clarity. And as you said, this consistency compounds.
It really does.
The narrative in the case study flashes forward several months. This whole transformation culminates in Ethan being invited to deliver a keynote presentation at a major international leadership conference.
Right. He stands on that stage not as the exhausted, burnt-out consultant he used to be, but as a genuine thought leader. And he unpacks the exact question that started his whole journey. What separates high performers from busy performers?
The answer he gives is brilliant, honestly, because it strips away all the glamorous myths of success.
Yeah, he explains to the audience that success is rarely determined by innate talent alone. Talent is just the baseline.
It just gets you in the door.
Right. True. Sustainable success is shaped by mundane daily habits. It's shaped by emotional resilience, by intentional learning, and most critically in our modern era, by the ability to aggressively protect one's attention in a world that is literally designed to distract you.
I want to read the exact quote he uses to conclude his keynote, because it perfectly encapsulates the reality of the friction we discussed earlier. He tells the audience, and I quote, "A successful morning doesn't guarantee a successful life, but thousands of intentional mornings gradually create one."
That is the ultimate testament to the architecture of systems. Thousands of individual votes cast for the identity of a high performer.
Right.
It isn't about one perfect day. It is about the resilient average of your days.
Wow. I want to pause for a second and turn this right over to you, the listener. Think about your morning today, or think about tomorrow morning. If you had to write down your top 3 priorities for the day right now, before you were allowed to check a single screen, before you look at a single email, what would they be?
Do you even know?
Right. Do you even know?
Because if you don't know your priorities before you open your inbox, I guarantee you, someone else's priorities are going to fill that void immediately.
Your boss, your clients.
That is the harsh reality of the modern workplace. If you do not claim your attention, someone else will gladly spend it for you.
So what does this all mean for us? Synthesizing everything from Ethan's journey, the ultimate takeaway here is a complete redefinition of the word productive.
True productivity is not about doing more.
No.
It is not about cramming an impossible number of tasks into a shrinking window of time just to look busy. It is about becoming more thoughtful, more focused, more resilient, and more present.
Yeah.
Excellence does not begin when you sit down at your desk or when you log into your first Zoom meeting of the day. It begins long before that. It begins with the very first neurological choices you make when you wake up. Every single sunrise offers you a renewed opportunity to basically reset your baseline.
It really is a massive paradigm shift. We have to stop asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
The source material leaves us with this incredible instruction. It says, do not ask, how can I accomplish more today? We have to completely banish that metric.
Throw it out.
Instead, ask, how can I become the kind of person who consistently creates meaningful results? Because lasting success isn't built through these rare, cinematic, extraordinary moments of inspiration. It's built through ordinary, sometimes really boring mornings, repeated with extraordinary consistency.
It is the quiet, unseen architecture of a successful life. Every single habit shapes the identity, and every intentional block of focus strengthens the cognitive resilience.
Absolutely. And to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Something that builds on everything we've explored today. If, as we've learned from all these sources, every morning is a vote for the person I'm becoming, what happens if we shift our perspective on our evenings?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Right. What if we view our evenings not just as the exhausted, burnt-out end of the day where we just collapse in front of a screen, but as the quiet campaign strategy for tomorrow's election? How would you prepare tonight to ensure you cast the exact right vote tomorrow morning?
That's a great question to leave on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.